Coming up next on the Voice of Alabama Politics, Syrian Crisis. Also, the V-Team takes a look at secret advice. And where is Speaker Mike Hubbard?
The captain's under there. Hey, Kevin!
Guys,
Oh, he's with that guy. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics with your host, Bill Britt, and the V-Team with Claire Austin, Susan Britt, Jack Campbell, Baron Coleman, Charlana Spencer, and special reports with Jonathan Barbie. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to the Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Hi.
How are y'all doing?
Clarine is not here today, but she will be missed.
I'm going to call dibs on egregious.
I
I'm
was
going to go ahead and put
wondering
that
who
out.
might get the egregious out of the way.
She always jumps the gun on that one.
It happens that way. A big stir in the state this week when Governor Robert Bentley announced that he would not accept any Syrian refugees. I know it has been a hot topic on your radio show, Jack. What are you hearing?
Well, I don't know how, if a president, I don't know if did he grant an executive order or whatever, allowing these people to come in, how's Bentley going to stop them? I mean, it makes for good copy. It's a nice little act of grandstanding to stir up folks, but constitutionally and legally, can he do that? That's my question.
No, he can't.
That's what we're hearing. It's not in his purview. It's not in his authority.
Right, and we've already got a facility in Mobile that has been qualified to receive these refugees. A similar facility in Louisiana has only received 14 refugees. So we're not talking about just a mass influx of Syrians. I think since 2012, we've taken in 2,100 Syrian refugees into the entire United States. That's nothing. I mean, they're selling this like we're about to just get bombarded. And I don't know if y'all have noticed, there's an ocean in between us and Syria. There's quite a bit of like globe in between. I think the president's committed to 10,000. So I don't understand how, 15 or 20 people coming in looking for a safe place to be. These are women and children too that we're closing our doors to.
How did this hysteria get so blown? I guess the Paris bombing and the Paris shootings, the killings there, have really ignited this whole affair, hasn't it, Susan?
It really has. And of course, it always brings up the memories of 9/11, and we go back to that. And so we can feel for the Parisians, of course. But we're also in a presidential election season. So they're really taking this up to another level of rhetoric and trying to make people afraid. And I think this is really going to become a problem if it doesn't tamp down.
One of the things, and you mentioned that, I've been surprised that, Hillary Clinton is really a hawk. Mm-hmm. And the fact she's had to back away from this issue, Jack, and let the Republicans take all the steam is due to Bernie Sanders, I guess.
Yeah, I think that she can't put herself out there as a hawk because it's going to hurt her in her primary.
Yeah.
So she has to be real cautious, and she's not in a good spot.
I get the feeling that Hillary would probably agree with some of Trump's rhetoric.
Most likely, bomb them now and count later.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, I have a friend who's from France, and her sister still lives there near the Alps, and she said she's not even in Paris, that it's really scary because of all the Syrians that have moved in there.
Sure.
In the last few years, but it's still a serious situation, and we don't really have that here. But
well, and I agree. Susan and I lived in New York City on 9/11 and after, and it was a scary place to be.
It wasn't just that day; it was days and weeks and months after.
And that wasn't a ground assault. A ground assault in restaurants and nightclubs, that's really, that's more scary than flying an airplane into a building.
I mean, the president of France was in the stadium, at the soccer game, when those bombs went off outside.
You know, I do think, and this is being used as a political tool, but people have a reason to be afraid. I mean, these folks, by and large, do not share our values, and that's, you know, when they boo and when they get on television after heads have been chopped off and go Allah Akbar, whatever it is, death to the infidels, death to America, it makes people a little crazy over here.
It does.
But by the same token, you can't say that the KKK represents Christians any more than you can say that ISIS or the Taliban represents the entire Islamic population. You know, these are isolated groups of radicals that we're dealing with, and no more than Westboro Baptist or the Klan represents, you know, what I feel as a Christian. I think that there's always that spectrum that we have to be aware of and not group innocent bystanders who just happen to share a culture in.
You know, as of late, the Klan hadn't been chopping off any heads or putting them on pikes, but not that they wouldn't, I guess.
And it's not that the problem, I think the real problem is there's no way of vetting people to say, okay, are you a true Muslim or are you a radical? There's no way to they're not going to admit it to you. Yeah. There's no way to really test that. And by doing it across the board, I think that's a bad idea.
They get in. However, they're coming. They're going to come in. And that's part of who we are as a people. We are welcoming. We open our arms. One of the stories we did this week, Beth, and I know you looked at it and we talked about it, the Alabama Ethics Commission has been writing secret, confidential memos, letters to lawmakers, giving them special privileges under the ethics law. I mean, there's no public record. We don't even know about it. We discovered it because we had leaks. I mean, how did they do that?
Again, I'm going with Claire's thing here. Let's shut down the Ethics Commission. Let's let the AG's office handle it, and let's let the black and white law be the black and white law. I think the Ethics Commission at this point has gotten to where they're taking too many liberties and doing too many things where it's okay in this situation for this lawmaker, it's not okay in this situation for that lawmaker. And we just need to do away with it and enforce the laws that are on the books.
I mean, Jack, you guys cover this every day. I mean, it's just outrageous what these fellows are doing.
Well, it really is. I mean, it's kind of like, well, let's not get the commission together to meet to discuss this. We'll just privately give you the green light on this, which has no legal, it's no, prevailing legal authority at all.
No, but it opens it up if that case goes to court, it opens it up for reasonable doubt. They can pull that paper out and say, well, gee, they said I could. I didn't know any better.
I got this letter that granted me permission.
Right,
exactly.
I mean, but, like Patricia Todd, she's in a tough spot, and I know.
Well, and that's, the Attorney General Strange and Scott Anderson, the president of the DAs, sent a letter to all the lawmakers this week in Alabama saying, look, guys, if you're relying on the Patricia Todd case to say that you can get extra work, you're going to jail. I mean, it was serious, wasn't it, Susan?
It was so serious that not only did they send a letter to all the DAs and lawmakers, they sent an email to all the legislators. They didn't send a regular letter like the Attorney General's office does. They sent an email that saying, basically saying this is urgent, pay attention.
I mean, they left the door open for Patricia Todd to maybe be indicted.
Yeah, and, in her defense, she did seek an opinion, although the whole commission didn't meet. Or did they? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did.
But wasn't it after the fact?
It was after she had gotten the job. I don't think they're going to indict Patricia Todd, but I'm telling you, they're stepping up and letting people know we're not going to tolerate this kind of thing.
We've got a solution to this, Bill, and the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, you've got insurance agents voting on insurance regulations, you've got doctors voting on health care bills. There's too many conflicts of interest in the whole process. Let's just pay our legislators a fair wage and let them go about the business of the state of Alabama, and then not let them take any other outside income.
See, Patricia's problem is, I don't know what she's being paid by the group that she represents, but it's over $100,000, I think. Plus her legislative salary is, around $45,000. Yeah. Well, she's in a tough spot, but and I'm with you. I don't think they'll indict her, but if she had good sense, she quit one of those jobs.
All right, we're gonna have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis.
Sadly, this happens too often in families with autistic children.
First nightmare, their child wanders off, disappears, and is nowhere to be found.
Where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. There is still an ongoing push and shove behind the scenes at the Attorney General's office and the governor's office. As we all know, we've talked about it before, the governor has said that he has taken away General Strange's authority to prosecute bingo cases. Luther Strange has said, no way, Gov, I'm going forward. You know, we talked about where Luther has taken away cases from DAs. But this thing could mount to a legal battle, but it's certainly a political battle, isn't it, Susan?
It is, and it's more of a power struggle than it is anything else. I mean, Cornerstone set up the ability for the governor to take this away from the Attorney General, which Riley had set up when he was in administration. Luther has taken away the ADA's authority in the Green Track case, even though there were 3 perjury counts in that case. He took that back in, it went into a black hole. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch it play out, but right now it seems just to be a power struggle between the 2 offices.
I mean, these cases out of Greene County, they just went into a legal black hole. I mean, those guys were indicted, we never heard of it again, did we, Beth?
Well, the Attorney General took over the case for people who were involved in these perjury indictments who were in his own office. So, of course, it went into a black hole.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he took it over, because he wanted to make sure that he could get these to disappear. Otherwise, he wouldn't have cared.
How, Jack, does this resolve? I mean, from a political standpoint, I don't see how General Strange wins continuing to go after bingo. Do you?
No, and I have a lot of respect for Luther and respect for Bentley too. You know, you have Bentley who's been kind of silent for 4.5 years. All of a sudden drinks muscle milk and decides he's going to.
That's what it was.
Yeah, it must have been push taxes and now to take over the, you know, to make a definitive statement which backed up what Luther had sent to them in January,
right,
that gambling cases are going to be handled at the local level. We're out of that business. But he is like selectively decided to leave Green Track alone and to shut Milton down. I mean, there's no consistency.
Right.
And it makes him look almost silly.
I mean, you know, and we know Luther Strange very well. This does smack of somebody in his office pushing an agenda. I mean,
It does. I mean, Luther really doesn't care about this issue. He had it dumped into his lap when he came into office. The task force was already there. They were already trying to, you know, do the prosecutions. And then, but being Luther, he felt that he needed to take up what he thought his position was and what his duties were and march forward. And honestly, I think he's tired of it.
well, I mean, there are people who still believe that the gambling machines that are used at Green Track and Milton and over at the Porch Creek are illegal, but they've never proven that, have they, Beth? It's never been proven.
They haven't, and they've got the constitutional amendments in these areas. And, you know, when we talk about this, it reminds me of some of the best advice I got when I first started working in politics, and it came from you, Susan. If something doesn't make sense, follow the money and see why it is the way it is. And I think if we were to get behind the books on this and figure out why it is that Green Track and Victory Land are being treated differently, we know what the difference is with Porch Creek, but what the difference is between these 2 facilities, I think there'd be a big dollar sign right there in the middle of it.
Well, there is definitely mischief, and there's always money, right, Jack?
Always money, yeah.
Well, if you look at the fact that Milton McGregor's property sits on the corridor between Atlanta and Mississippi.
Yeah, well, the Indians, none of the Indians want that casino.
Because you have to pass Victory Land before you get to Wetumpka, before you get to Montgomery, before you get to Atmore, before you get to Mississippi.
Yeah.
So right there's your dollars.
You know, some of the things and we wrote about this week, and I really take exception to this. I went back and looked at all the evidence that showed that the people of Macon County thought they were voting for electronic bingo. Even the Christian Coalition of Alabama, who worked and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars against this amendment, said that it was about electronic bingo. I mean, Beth, do we not live in a country or in a state where the voters still have the right to say what they mean and mean
I
what
think
they
the voters
say?
should. In the state of Alabama, unfortunately, I don't think the voters have the authority they should have. Because we are one of the states that you can't even get something put on a ballot through referendum. You have to go through the legislature to get it put on the ballot. But I think this is one of those things where the people in these areas have spoken and they've said what they want. And when you look at the economic impact and the jobs that these facilities have in these areas, why in the world would they not vote for it? It doesn't even make sense.
I mean, paper bingo wouldn't bring in the cash, would it, Jack?
No, I mean, they'll bring in some, but not, not like other bingo, not like other forms of gambling.
I choked on my cough drop.
I know you did.
Well, even the Christian Coalition literature that they were sending out cited electronic bingo. So there wasn't any question about what these amendments were about.
And there's another brouhaha going on down there. Milton is looking at opening back up. They went back in, they saw where they just ripped the machines out of the wall. They didn't unplug them. They tore up spots in the carpet. They tore up walls.
It was disgraceful.
Yeah.
And Bob, it's at the feet of Bob Riley for being a thug and
who will never
flexing his muscle.
Who will never be held accountable for it.
No, he won't.
But now they've got this argument where over the machines, bringing in new machines. And I think Milton can get new machines, and then the whole process would start all over
Luther
again.
made a comment on a radio show in Montgomery last week about, that would have to start the whole process over again. You know what would solve it? If the people had the right to vote, and we define what the law is, and not these clowns over there. Because to me, to rob the people of the right to choose is just... It's a travesty.
Well, I'm ethically opposed to zero-sum games played for money. It's just a bad deal. But if people vote on it and want to do it, then as Americans, we have a right to spend our money any damn way we want to, right, Beth?
Right, and at the end of the day, it doesn't affect you. Like if I go and I ride down to Victoryland and we get off this show and I decide to put, $50, $100 into the bingo machine, that doesn't affect you. It's not your problem. And I think we've got a lot of people who want to try and say, well, I don't think this is right, so you shouldn't be able to do it. And that's just not the way that this whole system is supposed to be structured. I mean, we've got people who are way more concerned about education, way more concerned about our crumbling infrastructure. There's so many things that actually affect all of us that are on the table, and this is a non-issue. It's time to settle it and put it to rest.
Aren't you sick of the nannies called the government, Jack?
Yes.
Or I didn't say ninnies. I said nannies.
Right.
We have a nanny state.
But even so, Bill, you and I have been approached by so many people, whether they're for bingo or against bingo or gambling in general, they want the right to vote yes or no.
Right.
They just want the right to vote on this and be heard.
Well, and I don't think our governor and legislature is going to do that without a fight. We're going to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
To the Holy One, give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Oh, yes.
$20. It won't buy much in the way of Christmas cheer. Yet it means plenty of hope for the homeless. Your $20 feeds 10 at the Jimmy Hale Mission. The more you give, the more we feed. Help us nurture those with nothing else and show them the true spirit of the season. To give, please call 323-5878 or visit jimmyhalemission.com today.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. It doesn't take a genius to put the dots together, to connect them in a way. Governor Bentley has said he wants to expand Medicaid, basically. I mean, he telegraphed that out there. His commission says they want to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act without saying so. And then he comes out and says he would be in favor of a lottery if it funded the general fund. This, to me, is easy to put together. Bentley wants to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare. Then he wants to pay for it with a state lottery. Jack, nothing sneaky about that, right?
No. Yeah, you wonder for a man that's supposed gambling his entire life what all this sudden change of heart is. It is tough to figure out, to connect all the dots. Who's a player, and it's like the Del Marsh bill that we all studied pretty closely and sounded good, but there's some problems with it. I don't think it could ever pass. It's just hard to figure out who's doing what. You got the governor saying one thing, Luther saying one thing. You got the speaker silent. I mean, it's kind of a weird dynamic going on.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but I think this it's actually really brilliant, don't you think, Susan? I mean, we're going to expand Medicaid, which nobody wants to do except for the people who need Medicaid.
Right.
And the people who think people should get health care. And we're going to do it by passing a lottery. Beth, it sounds like the Democrats are actually in charge now.
I mean, it'd be a great world if we were. I mean, this is the thing is, Medicaid expansion is designed for states like Alabama. And so when the Supreme Court made that ruling that states were allowed to opt out, it broke the Affordable Care Act, because then what happened is you've got states like us where you've got people who live in that line where they don't make the 127% of poverty level to qualify for the subsidies, but they also don't qualify for Medicaid because our threshold's so low. And people like me for a while fall into that gap where you have to pay full price for Blue Cross and you can't do it. So we've got to get Medicaid expanded. It's 300,000 people on the table here that get health insurance if we do it. And I think that the governor's seeing the writing on the wall that it's too expensive. Our rural hospitals are closing. Women are driving 2 hours in labor to deliver children. It's egregious. There we go. That's the use for it this week. It is egregious. And the governor, he took an oath to do no harm. He's got to find a way to get this done.
Well, Susan, if you believe the folks that say that gambling preys on the poor, if the poor are buying the lottery tickets and the poor and it's going to pay for Medicaid, then they're paying for their own health care.
They're paying for their own health care. Now, this will create a $300 to a $600 billion gap. That's something that could be covered by a lottery. But also, you got to remember that when you do this, mental health, public health, and senior services, according to the plan that they have now, come off the state rolls and go into the federal rolls.
Right, and you mean million, not billion.
You said billion or something.
It's million.
Million.
Well, I corrected you. You
Thank
corrected me the other
That's
day,
all right.
and I was wrong. And, I don't want to get back at you now.
Sorry. Yeah, million.
Well, it's inevitable. I don't think there's any way we're going to turn down the billions in what it's going to bring in.
Yes.
I don't. The question I have, Jack, is that can you convince the people of Alabama to pass a lottery knowing that it's going to go into the general fund? Because, Craig Ford came out and said, oh, no, it's got to go into the education trust
I don't
fund.
think people care where it goes.
Right.
I really don't. I think people are tired of being denied the right to vote on it, and I don't think they're all that bogged down in where the money's going to go.
Right. Well,
I think it will be an easier sell, though, if the money's going to education, just because, education's something that nobody has sour feelings about. Everybody wants their children, whether they're going to school in, Mobile or Mountain Brook, they want their kids to get a quality education. I think we need to raise the cigarette tax, because that's another thing. We're going to fund our own issue here and let the lottery go for education.
Yeah,
They actually did propose that in the task force,
The
raising it
problem
to
with
75
raising
cents.
cigarettes is you never get the money out of it you think you are, because people quit smoking.
Well,
they
is
do
that a
something else.
problem, though? I mean, good. People quit smoking.
I
Even
think
better.
it's a problem. I want people to
Right.
smoke. I
But
think people ought to smoke. More people need to smoke.
But if you're depending on that projection and you
Right,
can't
right.
meet that projection, then that poses a problem. That's
Right.
the only, with a tax like that, that's the only problem
one
with that.
thing they don't want, it appears, is they do not want this Marsh plan. They do not want to let that go through. And I think that solves all the problems. We've already got gaming. Expanding it a little bit isn't going to be the end of the world. It's just practical. I need to change topics here, because where is Mike Hubbard? We got Syrian crisis. We've got Medicaid expansion. We've got all these great grandstanding issues. And no Mike. Where's Mike, Susan?
His name's not even coming up in any of these discussions. It's as though he has vanished from the political scene, as though no one is consulting him. No one's asking him what he thinks about anything anymore. He's basically just retreated into his corner office on the 5th floor at the State House, and nobody really cares.
Does he even go there, Jack?
I don't know. I never see him, but I'm not too welcomed over there. I don't know. And I mean, he's got his hands full getting ready for a trial coming up here.
Yeah.
And is he going to run for Speaker again? I haven't heard he isn't, but I've heard other people, as we know, Phil Williams, and I've heard some other names mentioned recently. He's in real trouble, and he's being silent on some pretty big issues.
Well, it's just not like him to not get out there and
This
beat
isn't
his
his
chest.
style. This isn't his style. He's going to go down screaming. He's not going to go down, quietly fading out. No, something's up. Something's up.
I mean, Mike always thought that Speaker meant he needed to talk constantly. I mean, that's it.
I think his lawyer has a bit of a problem with that.
Well, you took both those windbags together, man. You can pile the shit with those things. I mean, really, Jack? What do you think?
I thought I heard you say something else.
Windbag. Windbag.
Well, it's definitely enough hot air to compete with Donald Trump coming to Alabama. That's true.
I saw Jack. They had some some T-shirts at Jack's radio station the other day.
No, we did not print these.
No, the Trump people sent them to you, right?
Yeah.
And
Trump
it said-
2016.
It said Trump 2016 on the front and on the back.
Adios, amigos.
That's just wrong. That's just wrong.
Yeah.
I wish we could put it in Syrian.
That
would have been better.
Probably in Pig Latin would be more appropriate.
Adios, Abib.
Ixnay on the Earth show. I just wanted to say that one of our faithful viewers who works at the Commerce Cafe where we eat when we tape the show is leaving, Choo Choo, to go take care of his elderly.
Great guy. Great. Best hamburger in town.
Heck yeah.
And to go take care of his mom. So, Choo Choo, good luck.
Yeah, we wish him and his mother the best and everything. Well, we also wish each and every one of you a blessed Thanksgiving and the holidays ahead being filled with joy. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You can catch new stories every day at alreporter.com. Like us on Facebook, watch us on YouTube, and always join us on Sundays. Thank you for watching.
Give thanks because he's given Jesus Christ.